And welcome along to the Gers TV. Today's interview is with a man, I've only met him today. Gentleman, big name in football and loads of stories to tell. The one and only Billy Davies. How you doing, Billy?
Si, it's great to be with you, and it's an absolute pleasure to join you here to talk about a lot of the good old days and a lot of fantastic memories.
Fantastic. It's been frozen cold outside, so it was great to get you here, the old Scottish weather. Some of the stuff I want to talk about is your early days with growing up and how you became a football player, going to Man United, joining Rangers, some of your memories with Rangers, the Rangers greats that that I would class as Rangers greats. And I know you had a wee look about the studio and some of your old pals that are no longer with us, and photographs of them. And we'll then go into your managerial career. And the part I'm really interested in, your opinions on modern day football, because I'm very outspoken on it. And I'm probably what people call a Rangers da, because my opinions is football was better 20 years ago.
Well, I've got a feather like that, Si, to be honest with you. My dad was obviously a great Rangers fan. This great Rangers team of Shearer, Caldo, Wilson, all of these great names that he can tell me about back, the 60s, all that great team, and the great games that he remembers as well, Si. He was actually, believe it or not, coming down the stairs at the Ibrox disaster and just jumped the fence and ended up down the bottom. So he tells me about all the great memories that he's got over the years, and as a big fan, obviously, he's seen many, many good players and many, many good teams. And I've got to say, he tells me a lot of great memories and talks about a lot of great memories.
So the Billy Davies story effectively starts in Pollock in Glasgow. As a young boy, you said there your dad was a Rangers supporter, so you brought up with a Rangers family. How do you get into football in the first place?
Well, it's very interesting, Si, because back then you grown up in Pollock and all of a sudden you go and join this lovely boys club called Pollock United Boys Club, and it was a fantastic.
Are they still going?
No, they're not going. They've now kind of renamed themselves and moved themselves, but certainly back then, Si, I've got to say it was a great club, great people, a lot of great parents that ran it. Some wonderful players came through it, and I thoroughly enjoyed growing up in Pollock, playing for Pollock United Boys Club. And then, of course, that's when you start to get one or two scouts coming along
to get noticed,
and then start to speak to you. Yeah.
So you played at that level. Was it a scout that approached you first of all, or did you go to another few clubs and then eventually get scouts watching you? How did that go about?
Well, believe it or not, at that time there was a whole range of different people coming to speak to me, and one in particular, it was a very famous mentor of mine, a very famous Manchester United scout. He was the chief scout in Scotland for Manchester United for over 50 years. This guy's responsible for the Martin Buckens and the Brian McClares and the Gordon Strackens and all of these great a whole range of top players that joined Manchester United. Jimmy Dickey was responsible, and right out the blue side, Jimmy Dickey made contact with the family. He said he'd been watching me for a number of years, and he then asked me to go down to Manchester and start to every weekend or every school holiday or so. I was going down to Old Trafford, taking in all the training sessions, meeting all the big superstar players down at the famous Cliff training ground.
Yeah.
And I've got to say, Si, it was a wonderful experience. And I've done that for about 2 or 3 years. And then there's a very famous manager called Dave Sexton. Dave Sexton then asked me to join the club. They offered me a 5-year contract.
So what age are you at this point?
At this point, I'm just 15, just up 15 and a half. Yeah, still there and just ready to make that break into if you like, senior football. But the offer was made, 5-year contract, Dave Sexton, Manchester United. I then went to Switzerland with the youth team. There was people like Mark Hughes and Norman Whiteside and all these great big name young players that came through the club. And I've got to say, Si, I took a bit of homesick. I come back to Scotland, told my parents that I was pretty homesick. I didn't want to go back to Manchester. And then I spoke to Greggy and Willie Thornton, and they offered me a 5-year contract, and I eventually signed with the great Glasgow Rangers.
Incredible. So just going back to the Manchester United days on that, what was the reason that Man United had scouted you and it wasn't like Rangers or any of the other clubs? Did they have a bigger presence in Scotland or?
No, I just think at that point there was a whole range of clubs chasing after my signature, Si. And there was a whole range of different clubs north and south of the border that was obviously making contact with my parents. But when Jimmy Dickey came in and when Manchester United came in, and then of course I started to travel down to Manchester, I've got to say my heart was really set on it because it was a great experience. I mean, back then, I remember, they took me to the famous 5-minute final, they call it.
Yeah,
This was
I've
Arsenal
listened to that
against
today.
Arsenal against Man U, and of course it goes 2-0 to Arsenal, goes 2-2, the 89th or 90th minute, and then Arsenal go and score to make it 3-2 for Arsenal. 100,000 people, Wembley. Great invite from the club to go down with my father. Wonderful, wonderful time. And just to train in at the cliffside with all these players.
There's been a big Scottish influence there as well.
Oh, yeah. You had people like Lou Macari, Arthur Albiston, Joe Jordan. All of these guys were in and around it. Gordon McQueen was there as well. So back then, Manchester United, of course, had a very, very big Scottish connection. And it was just such a pleasure. Jimmy Greenough, Brian Greenough.
So do you think that if you were maybe a bit older and you'd went down and done the same experience that you maybe wouldn't have had the homesick?
Yeah, probably. I think it's just one of these things that happened. It was an opportunity of a lifetime, and
of course,
I've got to tell you, Si, I had a great couple of years up and back and forward, and I loved the training and I loved the people that was there. I stayed in the Manchester halls of residence, and great memories. The manager was fantastic. The club was fantastic. But when you take homesick, you just take homesick. But, what then happened is it then brought in Greggy. It brought in Willie Thornton. I met these guys down at Ibrox, and Greggy convinced me to sign a 5-year deal with Rangers.
I'm just trying to get my time block here. So has John Gregg just took the job on at this point?
1979, 1980, Greggy's just took the job on.
So he's went for being a player himself?
Yes, went for being a player. In that squad that I joined, you had all the Ali Dawsons, and
I'm going to quickly put it up on the screen for you.
We had Ali Dawson, we had Greggy, Tommy McLean, we had Willie Johnston, we had Alec Millers, we had a whole range, Bobby Russells, all these guys there, as we can see. Davy Cooper's there. You've got John McDonald. You've got a whole range of great characters. A very good friend, David McKinnon. Very sad, Ali Dawson. And of course, you've got Coisty, Wee Pritchie, Craig Patterson. Big David McPherson was there. Sandy Clark's there. Great memories, wonderful, wonderful memories when I first joined the club. And of course, Greggy just took over as manager.
One of the things that I noticed for that right away is quite a lot of the players I've met. I also know Bobby Russell quite well, John McDonald, and a few others. That's all Rangers boys,
and very famous Rangers boys, as you know. You look at these guys in that picture there. Wonderful experience. Played a whole range of games for the club. I've got to say, Si, when I joined the club, the one guy that gives me great memory on how he treated me and what he done. I can pick out a whole. I had great times with all of these guys. Ali Dawson was fantastic. Wee Pritchie was excellent. I travelled with him every morning, getting into the training ground. Big Slim McPherson I grew up with. And Pollock.
He's a Pollock boy.
He's a Pollock boy as well. Big Slim was there. And then, of course, you've got John McClellan, the great captain. But I've got to say, Si, Davy Cooper, Bobby Russell, they treated me fantastically well as a young player. And they very, very much looked after me. And they made it feel great when you're walking into the training ground and you're on that training ground with these great players, because it was a joy to be there and a joy to be playing with these guys.
I mean, it must be great memories when you're looking at that photograph and thinking back that was probably the highlight of your career as a young boy.
Well, it certainly was. So the only thing I would say to you, and I say this, and I have said it in many, many podcasts, I probably was back then a little bit naive and a little bit young in the sense of in the mind. I didn't have enough confidence. Probably wasn't arrogant enough. Now, I talk about the Derek Fergusons, the Barry Fergusons, young James McFadden at Motherwell. These boys have got something in their makeup, and they've got. I think they've got that makeup which is kind of years beyond the age that they are, if you like.
So just quickly, but I'm going to let you continue. It's just something in case I forget this. That's something that Rangers Football Club just now are badly lacking. You can buy a good football player, but you have to be mentally ready for it.
You've got to have the character. You've got to have that maturity and that arrogance, and that's the one thing I feel. Don't get me wrong, Si. Every player will mature at different ages. You get ones that can make it at 16. You get other ones that don't come through, like Roy Keane, 23, 24.
And when they do.
And when they come through, then they come through. But we all mature at different ages, but certainly joining that club, I think I gave the place too much respect. I think I gave players too much respect. I didn't think I had enough confidence and arrogance. But I've got to say, they gave me a wonderful experience. I had a wonderful time at Rangers, 5 years, and then a year's month to month with Graham Souness at that point, who'd be Graham coming in. But great dressing room, great fun.
So tell us just a wee bit about Davy Cooper. Anybody that watches Gers TV might get fed up because Davy Cooper and Jock Wallace are my two Rangers heroes. But I can never get enough time hearing about the great Davy Cooper, who's taken away far too early.
There's no doubt about that. Such a tragic loss, Amy. As you said, there's a couple of guys up there, Ian Redford as well, terrible, and it's just awful that the good people have lost as well. So I've got to say, Si, I joined Rangers. There was John Gregg there. Greggy was great for me as a young player. Just took over the job, very difficult job. Greggy and Tommy McLean.
And you were off to Canada.
And then I was off to Canada for the Red Leaf tournament. That's where I made my debut just before my 16th birthday. That's when the tragic head knock happened to Ali Dawson, where he picked up a terrible head injury.
He'd have been captain at the time?
He's captain at the time, yeah. Ali was a captain. And I've got to say, that was a great experience. Playing against Ascoli of Italy, a very famous club.
Were they champions?
They were champions back then, a real tough nut of a group.
Yeah.
Character and tackling and very physical, but a great experience side. But with Greggy, I had a great couple of years, and then in came Jock Wallace, a complete turnaround from what Greggy was. Jock was an iron-fisted character, a real strong mentality in relation to what a Rangers player's all about and how Rangers should handle themselves. I've got to say that Jock came in, and again with a guy called Alec Totten. Alec's a very nice man, Alec Totten.
A great football man.
Great football man. But Jock was a real iron-fisted character, and he demanded.
I do believe he had a gentle side to him as well when you got to know him.
Yeah, as I said before, I was just a young player, so I was always getting a slap in the back of the head and told you we need to do things better, and the discipline's got to be better. And I often talk about that side to young players, about the upbringing that I got and the discipline that we were taught and how we had to behave in training, the things that we would do down the training ground.
Cleaning the boots and things
well, everything, cleaning cars, cleaning boots. But I had people like Ali McDonald putting these boot down the back of my cap, and before training started, and I would say to him, Doddy, what are you doing? He says, what are you going to do about it, Davis? Then come on, then. That kind of character. And there's a lot of characters back then, as I said, the Ali McDonalds and the Bobby Russells, Derek Johnsons, Sandy Jardins, Peter McCloys. All of these guys, I can name you, I can continue to go on. But the one thing about Rangers back then was the jersey, what it meant to play in the jersey, the fans, what it meant to be and go out and play in front of the fans, what the club was all about. Inside, it was a family-driven situation where it was a one team, if you like, and it was just all about character and discipline. And then, of course, a couple of years later,
Souness.
Jock Wallace left the club. I think he went to Leicester City.
Yeah,
if my mind serves me right.
That's right.
And then in came Graham Souness with Walter Smith. And at that point, I'd been at the club 5 years. I sat down with Graham, I sat down with Walter, and I said to him, look, I've been here a long time. I understand you're now starting to bring in all the big English names that come in, the Gascoignes and the Woodsies and all these Mark Hateleys, all these guys started to come inside.
A new era completely.
Absolutely. And I sat down and spoke to Graham. Graham and Walter were excellent. We all agreed it might be better for me to go and try and get more first team football.
This was amicable, aye.
It was very much so. They knew what they were doing. I knew what I had to do.
Because I do believe, I know a lot of players that ex-players still hold Rangers to heart. Like for example, Bobby Russell, they kind of knew their fate quite quickly with Souness. Whether you liked him or no, he was quite straight to the point. You're in or out. Did that disappoint you when that happened? Had you prepared yourself for it?
Well, to be honest, I knew there wasn't going to be a lot of opportunity.
Aye.
And when you go to a club like Rangers, you have to mature very, very quickly. As I said to you, I felt, although as the years were going on, I started to feel more comfortable. But I wasn't getting that run of games required. I wasn't getting put into that confidence place where you need to go as a young player. And unfortunately, when Graham came in, then they were going down a different road, signing different players. All the English internationals come up, and and it was a whole change. So the time was right for me. The time was right for them. Very disappointed to leave. 6 great years, I've got to tell you, of managing the reserve team and being involved with all the great players as you talked about. So fantastic experience.
Great memories.
Yeah.
Just a wee bit of lightheartedness here. I know you're talking about the great players and everything else, but I was showing you some of the photographs in the studio and then online. We were looking at the old Rangers teams because that was the first Rangers team that I'd ever seen as a young boy. But I couldn't see Gordon Ramsay. And did you have any experiences?
Yeah, so funny enough, somebody asked me that question on a podcast just recently. Aye. And when I was getting into Rangers, I remember getting a couple of nights a week to join a lot of the kind of part-time guys. So this, if you like, this youth team or these group of young players were getting brought in a couple of nights a week. And believe it or not, Si, the famous chef was in there, Gordon Ramsay, and he was training at that point. Don't get me wrong, we didn't really know or spend a lot of time because people were coming in training and then disappearing. Yeah. But I've got to say, I do remember him there. I do remember him. He certainly had a good bit of talent, but I don't think sitting back right now, Simon, I don't think that he's got any regrets on moving his career. I've got to tell you.
You wonder if he's sitting somewhere talking about Billy Davies. Came in and he'd never have made it as a chef.
He probably walks. I've probably not met him a few times. He probably remembers those days, as you can imagine.
So where does your career go from leaving Rangers? What happens next?
Well, what happens next? I get contacted by a guy called Ian McNeil, a famous. He was connected with Aberdeen. He then became the assistant manager of Chelsea. He had great friends over in Sweden, believe it or not. And he contacted me and said to me, Billy, I've got a friend over in Sweden. They're looking for a ball-playing midfield player. Would you be interested in going abroad? And I've got to say, Si, I went over. I met the chairman. I met the board. I looked at the club. I was really keen on going abroad, learning a new culture, learning the language. I just felt that the experience might do me the world of good. I then went from one club to another club into the Premier League.
In Sweden?
In Sweden, yeah. I joined a club called EF Elfsborg.
Yeah.
And I had a great season or so with them. And then right out of the blue, I was contacted by Alex Smith at St Mirren.
So just before you went into that, how did you settle in Sweden okay? Did you like the culture? Was it different?
It was very different. I've got to say, I've got a great couple of notebooks on training, right? So on preparation. It's fantastic learning. Even going to school every day and learning the language was also very, very important. So going to school every day, learning the language, working with these Swedish players and their culture and their training approach. Back then I think it was around about 87, you had the famous European Gothenburg that won the European against Dundee United.
I remember it.
You had the famous Orgrita, who had people like Anders Limpar, famous Arsenal player, left-sided player, great player. You had Roy Hodgson, who was a manager over in Sweden at that point.
So I was basically a football nation.
Listen, the one thing I can say to you about that learning curve was that these players were super fit. They were super professional. Believe it or not, they were not full-time.
Right.
They decided to keep all their own jobs.
So did you have to get a job in?
No, I was, all I'd done was go to school in the morning, which the state actually paid for me going to school.
Right.
And then I joined the squad about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We trained from 3 to 5.
So you were still busy.
And this was, by the way, this was 7 days a week. This is a full-time training program and a full-time games program. But what they decided to do, they wanted to keep their jobs and they wanted to have the best of both worlds.
So a completely different philosophy of Scottish football.
Totally.
And you also mentioned that they were super fit and the culture was different. How would that compare when you obviously with the Gillane Sands? You must have done that with Bill Schrock. That would have
the famous Gillane Sands. And well, the only difference, Si, from the Gillane Sands and over in Sweden, I remember joining in January and I think there was something like 2 meters of snow had fallen over in Sweden. And one of the pre-season runs that these guys done is they actually made you run through some of the snow. Now, obviously, being 5'6", sometimes you couldn't see me, Si, you know what I mean? Sometimes you couldn't see me, but I've got to say they did have big snowfall, 1 meter and 2 meters of snow. They'd done a lot of training and a lot of power training, actually running through the pitch and running through this very difficult level of snow. So there's a lot of things that they'd done in their culture. Their training was just excellent. The tempo, just the tactical things that they'd done what they done in the training session. It was just night and day from British football.
And I'm assuming you would have, and later on we'll talk about this, but you would have carried some of those notes and took them to your football and management.
Yeah, funny enough, that's what they call me at Morton.
Aye.
Dave Dossier, they call me, because I'm always taking notes, and or Dossier Dave is what one of these guys called me, because since 1979, 1980, so I've got to tell you, I can go into my study and I can show you a lot of the training sessions I've done with John Gregg.
And you marked
I done with Jock Wallace. I did with Graham Souness. And since 79, 80, I've always taken notes. I've always took training sessions.
And you still work them?
I've always took a lot of the words of advice from managers and coaches. I've worked with great coaches at every club. So I really do like to sit down and go back and write things down and take notes of training.
So we'll go into the St Mirren in a minute, but it's something I'm really interested in, and I find it fascinating that some of the best managers in English football have been Scotsmen, and they've had similar. Like Alex Ferguson talks a lot about how when he was young, he was questioning tactics, he was questioning when other players were just playing, and I know you were similar. Were you always like that as a young boy learning football? You were always wanting to know how they done it, why they done it, what was the point?
Yeah, because what I'd done is I would go up to Greggy or Tommy McLean or Davy Probin back then, who was one of the coaches. I would go up to all of these managers at different clubs, different coaches, and I would ask them, why did you do that exercise? What was the time of that exercise?
Then you would take a note of it so you don't forget.
Then I would take a note. I'd go home. I'd write up the exercise. I'd write up what the drill was. Even to things like, as you said, Ghislaine Sands, the famous Ghislaine Sands. I remember, I can tell you the runs that we'd done there. I can tell you what we'd done at Bellahouston Park. I can tell you what we'd done at the training ground. I can tell you what exercises was getting done.
So you must have been thinking that at one point when your career's over that you're going to management.
I was always very keen on it. It's something that I was very, very keen on, Si. I was very keen on learning. I'm a big student of the game, a big student of other sports as well. But I don't know why, Si. That's just what I'd done in my makeup. I was always speaking to the managers. I was always speaking to the coaches. I would come home and write things down. I've kept every single season. I've always kept this continued process of education and learning.
Because the stereotype of a football player is supposed to be they're stupid, but some of the players that are intelligent are really, really intelligent. And when you listen to their philosophies and how they do, I mean, they might do something that you think that's weird, that's stupid, but it's because you've studied the game and you've got different experiences. And you're saying Sweden, Ghislaine's hands to the snow in Sweden. It's incredible, but you've took note of everything and you use that to this day.
Well, every single club, every single manager and coach. And amongst that, I've obviously done all the coaching courses. I was doing that very early during the week when I was a young player at 23. I was going out 3 days a week doing coaching with junior teams, boys clubs, girls teams.
So you were always planning at one point when your career finishes, when a lot of young players play, not realising that one day it's over and it's like a switch.
No, sorry, Si, but I think that's one of the things, Si, that even during all of that process of going out 3 days a week coaching, as I said, I was coaching council teams, community teams, juniors, boys club, amateur teams, boys and girls, all young and old, all different sizes. And I've got to say to you, that gave me a great education, a wonderful education. And then when you get into your coaching badges, you start to do your coaching badges. I'm a big fan for travelling abroad into club visits. I do love to go and look at other countries, other clubs. I like to see what they're doing. So for a very long time, and then over and above that side, I do love to go and look at other managers and coaches in different sports.
How do you do it?
Very much so, yeah.
So let's go back to where we were, St Mirren. You moved to St Mirren, so you kind of local for you, for where you're from. How was that experience?
Well, I got the call for Alex Smith. Again, great to join the club.
Good manager.
Good manager. Had a couple of years with Alec and Jimmy Bone. I then moved from them and came Tony Fitzpatrick and Frank McGarvey. They come into the club. Had a great time under Tony and Frank there. Played some wonderful football. Scored the goal of the season at Ibrox against this famous
swiftly moving on.
Swiftly moving on for Si, but I'm going to tell you again, I remember scoring the goal of the season. But no, it was a great team, good dressing room, wonderful time, as I said, with these different managers again, learning all these things, Si. And I thoroughly enjoyed my time at St Mirren. And then in came David Pleat at Leicester City. He made a bid and took me down to Leicester City.
So How do you find the different experience with Scottish football and English football? Obviously, Scottish players seem to the great Scottish players excel in the English league, and the great Scottish managers as well. But I personally feel there's a snobbery in Scotland. Now, for an example, Rangers have lost out in the last few years with some great players. The classic example of that would be Lewis Ferguson. Because he's Scottish, he's not good enough. Why is that snobbery? Why does it exist, and why does it not exist in England, where the English players are quick, the English clubs are quick to pounce on those Scottish talents and take them at next level?
I think they're underrated here. I think they're undervalued
By the Scots.
Well, by probably more than just the Scots. I think if you go further afield, I think Scottish football, Scottish players, Scottish coaches and managers, sometimes they don't get the credit they deserve. And we're just Scotland. But that's not the case. We have always produced great players. We have always produced great coaches. But more importantly, we've always produced great managers. And what do we have, in my opinion? We've got a will to win. We've got a discipline. I think we're very transparent, straight to the point. I think a lot of, particularly in England, a lot of these English players that I work with thoroughly enjoyed that transparency. And they loved the straight talking. They loved the demand and the discipline. This is one of the big factors that I've found coming into Scottish football just recently, Si. I think there's a lack of understanding for a lot of the young players here, where they've got to realise that this job that they're in is not just an ordinary job. This is a job that needs 24/7 attention, 7 days a week, right throughout the year. And what I see here is a lot of the guys here don't understand what it means to be a professional footballer, and also what it means to play for some of these great, famous clubs, whether it's Rangers or whether it's some other lower level club. I still believe that they don't pay enough attention to their job, their body, what's going on, and so on.
What would that be down to? Because it's a great point you're making, because one of the things that you haven't mentioned there, but it's kind of common sense, that you guys did have that, but you were cleaning cars, cleaning boots. Now, the other problem is these young boys that are coming into big clubs, they're getting life-changing wages. So how do you tell a wee boy like that about how important football is? They don't really care.
Well, I often say that because I'm a bit like you. You talk about, and we'll talk about it later. You'll talk about the evolving game, and how this game currently has got so much more than it had. Don't get me wrong; it's evolved. We know there's data. We know there's all sorts of things in recruitment. We know we've got all these numbers that we can take from training and games. We've now got all the video analysis. But at the end of the day, Si, football's football. It's all about players. It's all about the pitch. It's all about the lines. It's all about the ball. It's all about the tactical disciplines which required. It's all about that will to win. So I think the difference now, I feel, that we've gone from one extreme to the other.
Yeah, I agree with
that. Now
that.
people are just too mollycoddled. Now we've got to be too soft with people. And along these lines, people are paying big money to come and watch players. No matter what league you're in, I don't care how much you pay, Si. But if you're paying money to come and watch a club, then you've got a duty of care to make sure that your condition is right, that on and off the pitch are doing the right things, and the demands have got to put on you. Now that means that we're going to go from current to back old, because there's more discipline required, more demand on people, and you've just got to make sure that when people sign those contracts, you understand that those mollycoddling days need to be over. You have to perform for this club. You have to be proud putting on that jersey. You have to make sure that you're entertaining the supporters that are paying great money.
So I'm going to come back to you on that. Before I do that, so you're involved with Morton just now. I think I might be right with this. If I'm wrong, correct me. Did you manage a couple of games last month?
Yeah, but what's happened is we've just lost our manager who's went to Raith Rovers, Dougie Emery. Dougie's went to Raith. And the board have asked me over a couple of games would I come in and be the interim manager.
But you've said you don't want to be the manager.
Absolutely not. Two things. I made a promise to Dougie that I would not step in his grave. If you want to call, don't get me wrong, Dougie's not been sacked. He's decided to leave. But at the same time, too, Si, my word's my bond. And I told Dougie before I come in that would be the case. The board know that's the case. The board also know that if I get the opportunity, then a dugout is a place that I relish. I love being in the dugout.
Of course, yeah.
And I love coaching players. I love working with players. But at the same time, too, currently, I'm the technical head coach at Morton. I told the board I'm happy to stay there for when they bring in another young manager,
Support
I would be happy to support them, yeah.
Aye, so the reason I'm asking you that, you're still currently involved in football. You've never left it. The subject I want to ask you about is scouting and how that goes, how that's changed so much. I understand what you're saying, that football has moved on and technology's there. Why would you not use it? But too many clubs, in my opinion, and mainly Rangers, I talk about on my show, it's a Rangers channel. But my worry is that mostly it's on YouTube and recommendations. I would say if I was to tell you that I've got this great player who's playing for a club just now, and I was telling you that, my word, this guy's going to make it, I would expect you to go and see him, to physically go and watch him.
Well, Ayr United against St Johnstone Friday night, it was important for me to go along and watch that game live. I could have sat in the house and
But it's not the same.
It's not the same, Si. And I keep saying this to all the coaches and all the people I've got at the club. We have got to be, we've got to be boots on the ground. We've got to get out and travel far and wide. Of course, you get recommendations from agents telling you about these players on DVDs and on YouTube.
But they've also got they've also got an invested interest in that.
Well, that's right. But you've also, the bigger the club you go, you've also got this video analysis department that will sit and look at all these YouTubes and videos. But as far as I'm concerned, I don't think there's anything better than the technical staff getting out to all the games, watching opposition, watching transfer targets, just taking in games in general, coming back and giving in the reports, putting in the reports, keeping that catalogue of players at all different levels, games at all different teams at all different levels, I think is very important.
So is that, because this is where I'm not sure, is that still happening, or is that completely gone from the professional game?
Well, it's not completely gone, but the more I feel, the more like I had at Forest, where I had a foreign owner coming in.
Yep.
Now that foreign owner was very keen to look at videos on YouTube, and he was very comfortable making signings from YouTube and video. And I continually try to advise him that we can look at these players on YouTube and video, but we have to go and watch players. For example, the great mentor that I talked about, 50 odd years at Manchester United, Chief Scout. He went and saw people like Gordon Strachan 12 times before he made.
So that's what I'm saying. Because he could have had a shit game.
You better believe it.
You
better believe it.
He's a good player, but you've never seen it.
So getting that advice from people like him, where it took him 12, 14 games, watching the Gordon McQueens, watching the Martin Buckens, watching the Brian McClairs, watching the Gordon Strachans, home and away, in the dry, in the rain, against a passing team, against a physical team. That's how you scout, Si. But no disrespect to the current recruitment situation.
I get that.
It's also, there's a part to be played as well when you've got this recruitment, you said, the technology.
For an example, if I was an agent and I'm trying to sell you a player and I'm sending you a YouTube video, right? I'm not going to show you the YouTube video when he's rotten.
Well, that's what they do. They've got to compile the best footage. But what we've got to do in the clubs is we've got to do the right thing. We'll look at the footage. We'll get different levels of coach or technical staff to go and watch that player or that game. And eventually it will go up the wayside where it will go from maybe the academy coach into maybe the youth coaches, into the reserve coaches, to the assistant managers. And then eventually the manager and the assistant managers and the first team staff have to go along and make sure that we've got a ton of reports live that we've watched either the player.
So it's not a lazy approach.
Oh, definitely not. It's so easy to sit down and watch a YouTube or do that, as I said to you, like Friday, where I felt it was necessary for me to go and watch Ayr United St Johnstone because I wanted to see the game live. I could have watched it in the telly, but there's nothing better than getting the boots on the ground and travelling far and wide.
So obviously you've been a manager in English football. You've managed Scottish football as well with Motherwell. Anybody else?
I went Motherwell, and then I went down to Preston. I went to Derby County, and then I went to Nottingham Forest. I'm now at Morton.
So just a question I'm going to ask you again. I know you're not the type of guy that would want to criticise other professionals, but this is my opinion that Rangers got it completely wrong at the start of the season. Massive funds available, American recruitment takeover that maybe didn't understand the game. I know they understand the game as Leeds United, but Leeds United and Rangers are totally different clubs. Where did Rangers get that wrong at the start of the season? Because some of these guys that have came up are all linked to the one club.
So it's very difficult because you don't know what the recruitment policy was. For example, I don't know how they ran the recruitment policy. I've got no idea whether or not the first team manager was involved in that recruitment policy, which you would like to think he was, along with his staff as well. So it's very difficult to criticise without knowing what the policy was.
But do you think that when I showed you the photographs earlier on, the first thing I'd say to you was it was all young Rangers boys there. Do you think this is an issue that a lot of these boys have got the talent, but they're just getting signed before being maybe educated? Or guys like John Brown, when he was a scout, he would make sure they were mentally ready for it, because there might be young boys like Fernandez is a great player, no doubt about it. And Magoma is the under-21 England captain, so he's not a bad player, but it's a completely different lifestyle up here. And just to sign him and basically get him a bit up the arse and put him on the park, I don't think it's a good approach.
When Rangers won the Cup Winners' Cup, how many Scottish players were in that squad?
Everyone was Scottish.
Everyone.
Yeah.
Rangers Football Club has to have the majority of Scottish players in its dressing room.
I would agree with that.
It has to be a 70-30 or a 60-40 balance. I understand we're now in a different world where there's a lot of good foreign players would come in. But sometimes, Si, if the balance is not right, you lose that togetherness and camaraderie in the dressing room. So the balance between the good foreign player, but more importantly, the British or Scottish player, that balance has to be right to make sure that the dressing room togetherness and the dressing room spirit, and there's not too many cliques. That's very, very important to get that balance right. And I go back to the European Cup Winners' Cup. Rangers done it back then with Scottish players. There's still a lot of good Scottish players, a lot of good British players.
I think they're actually all pals as well, off the park.
Well, the spirit's important. The togetherness is important. As I said before, you can bring in a lot of very good foreign players. It's very important. But don't take away from what this club's tradition is. This club's tradition is always brought through, always worked with, and always produced very good Scottish players. Absolutely.
Billy, a question here. I don't really know if it's just because of terminology. So when I talk about this on my show a lot, people disagree on it. Rangers have currently got a system where the American owners call it the head coach, and then you've got the director of football. Are we moving into an era now where you don't have a traditional manager? Like when you're talking about when you were a manager, you were looking at all aspects of the club, and you were doing the scouting as well. Is that gone as a manager now a head coach?
Well, I've came across some great managers in my time as a manager. I've played against a lot of the English managers, for example, the Sam Allardyces, the Steve McLarens. I can name you a whole ton of managers that I'd faced. And just doing a podcast recently with Sam Allardyce and down in England, Sam said a very interesting thing, talking about this head coach or manager. A manager has to manage the club, Si. Mm-hmm. And part of that's not just managing the pitch. A manager's got to manage departments. He's got to be able to go into departments and get the spirit right, get the personnel right, understand the respect of people above, understand the respect of people below. And as Sam Allardyce quite rightly said, you can bring me in and call me a head coach, but I'm still going to manage the club. Yeah. And that's what good managers do. That's how Fergie was successful. That's how all the great managers. Now, we're now moving into the head coach's role. And the head coach's role, again, is still a bit of a grey area. Like, for example, recruitment. What does he do in the training ground? How does he go about picking the team and things like that? And when you look at it, Si, there's no doubt it can work. There's no doubt that the head coach and the sporting director and all of these other roles can work, but they've got to have the right people in place, and they've got to have the togetherness that's required to make sure that the club moves forward in the correct way.
Ultimately, the reason I'm saying it is ultimately it's a head coach. Sorry, it's the manager, the head coach, who's the first to get the sack. But if they're not buying the players, then it's a bit unfair. But that seems to be the way it's going.
Well, you'd like to think that the head coach is contributing to that side, although the decision, and you can respect the finances of the club.
Yeah.
If we identify a player and that player is too costly for the finances, no matter what club, then great respect has got to be shown for the club. There's a certain budget, a certain level of player we can go to with a certain salary. So as the head coach or the manager, like I had in England, I would always recommend to the board, here's the transfer targets that I think we should go for. Here's the players that I think would make this club better. You would then look at the background, you would look at the type of player, you would look at the size, the pace, the ability of the player, whatever it may be. But your job is to recommend to the board who control the finances. And then ultimately, for the people at the top, they've then got to decide whether that transfer target is realistic in relation to the finances and the structure of the club.
So something I'm going to ask you about just now that you maybe know the answer better than me is, I'm saying 3 times that you've been linked to jobs at Rangers since you left as a boy. Maybe more than that, because it seems to be every time over the last maybe 15 years that if there's a vacancy, like head coach, manager, whatever, Billy Davies' name's mentioned in it. Has Rangers ever actually approached you officially?
Well, what's interesting, Si, I've actually been linked since probably 2000, I think 2007.
Right, okay.
When I started to get to the playoffs and promotions and going through all that stuff with Preston.
That would have been a peak of your career as a manager?
Well, Preston, Derby and Forest, obviously with the playoffs and the promotions and all the bits and pieces at that point. And even after that, side for many, many years since then, there's always been a link. My management team was approached by Rangers. I think it was the chief exec Robertson that made the contact.
Was that for a management position?
That was for the manager,
right? Okay.
To be the manager of Rangers. He made contact with my management team. We were told that I was going to be interviewed as one of the 4 candidates,
right,
to become the Rangers manager, and unfortunately, that never went any further.
So you actually never spoke with Rangers then?
Currently, I can assure you, even through all the positive times and all the good times and the successful times, I have never had a conversation with Rangers. And don't get me wrong, Si, Rangers can do whatever they like. It's their choice, it's their club, and I've got no problem. But the least I would have expected is to sit down, have a conversation with me, let me go through the presentation, let me talk about my style.
Thanks, but no thanks.
Let me show you the success and how the successes have came. Yep. And from that point of view, I've been very disappointed. But then again, as I said, it just depends what direction the club want to go. They may have been looking for a head coach, a younger manager, and maybe an experienced manager, and a manager that's got a proven track record. Maybe that was a line that they maybe did not want to go down. I don't know.
It's interesting. The podcast recently, one of the interviews, it was quite well documented that you had brought Kevin Thelwell into professional football, and a few people had spoke to me since then in private and said to me, disappointing that he hadn't contacted you, even just to say, Billy, you know what, thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Well done. I didn't realise what you got me into, one of the greatest football clubs in the world, whatever. Has he contacted you since, or is it?
Well, I started in Preston. I brought him in as back then it was the Centre of Excellence, and I brought him in as the head of Centre of Excellence. I was looking and searching for that position. Spoke to Kevin as one of the 4 interviews that we'd done, and decided that I would go along with Kevin Thelwell at Preston North End. Great relationship, worked together in the Centre of Excellence, done all the usual with the parents and the kids and the presentations and all these meeting nights that we would organise. I then got 2 playoffs with Preston. Derby County came in, took me to Derby County, and then I decided to take Kevin and his assistant, Glenn Salmon, to Derby County as the head of academy.
So
again,
that's a big role.
Big role. More importantly, a big salary jump for Kevin. Very, very important. Through that period, the team's doing great. We're starting to get to the playoff semi-final. I decided to bring Kevin in as an extra pair of hands with the first team. My assistant manager was stuck at Preston. He was in dispute with Preston North End. So I brought Kevin into the first team as an extra pair of hands, going into the playoff semi-final. And then I took Kevin to Wembley in the playoff final, again as part of that. We then get into the Premier League. Out of my own pocket, I gave Kevin, along with a whole range of other staff members, a huge bonus for getting into the Premier League. And then when I left the club, unfortunately, Kevin was the only one out of the 16 staff that decided to stay. Since I left the club, Si, I've got to tell you that I've never had any issues with Kevin.
Yeah,
I got on great with Kevin at Preston and Derby County. And then when he was announced as Rangers, then I reached out to Kevin through my management company. I felt I could have been a really big help to him.
Even just advice?
Well, that's what I said to him. I said, irrespective of where you go with your manager, and you know more than anybody what I bring as a manager, I said, even out with that, no matter what you and the Americans decide, let me tell you about this club. Let me tell you about this culture. Let me tell you about this, the press. Let me tell you about the opposition. Let me tell you about the players and the staff. And
Did they listen?
I never even got the conversation. And I reached out to the management company. So I offered Kevin to sit down and have a coffee. He never once made contact. And let me make it clear to the Rangers supporters. I was very disappointed because I gave him his big start in football. And I genuinely believed I could have helped save his job at Rangers Football Club. And I could have made things his life a lot easier, no doubt about it.
I've no doubt about that as well. That's the reason I asked you the question. You're obviously passionate about football, but you understand Rangers, you understand Glasgow, and I don't think Kevin did. I don't think he understood it. He was under severe criticism with Rangers. Surely common sense would have been, pally with Billy Davies, I can give him a phone. Billy, what am I doing? Where am I going wrong? Anything. And to not even reach out to you, to me, it's maybe, I don't even know how I would describe it, but arrogance maybe, that he thought he didn't need to.
No, he's not. He's not an arrogant boy. I've got to say, he's actually a very well-mannered lad. I was very surprised about the sporting director. I didn't see him as a sporting director.
Yeah.
He was very well fitted in the academy. He was great on the training ground with the kids. Excellent at meetings. A good administrator. I think that's very important.
So it's maybe the wrong job for him.
Well, I don't know, because it's difficult. I've never worked with a guy in that position, but I've got to tell you, Si, I wish he did reach out to me, because irrespective of what direction he went in with the job or not, I certainly could have helped him a long way in how Rangers Football Club functions, the inside of Rangers Football Club, the people that are there and all the people that are around it, the players, the staff, the fans, the expectation level, what it means to play in this club, what it means to pull on that jersey, what it means in this city. You're only many, many miles away from the great rival. And then, of course, the media, which is very, very important for Kevin. I just think he was very naive and silly not to reach out. I would have helped him. As I said before, I do believe I would have saved his career. And I certainly believe that Rangers would be in a better place today if he would have sat down and listened to the advice I was going to give him.
I mean, but my own personal opinion is that I think at the start of the season, he'd have been a great, with all due respect, I know you're way getting up Morton just now, but I think you would do a good job at Ibrox. You obviously, you know your stuff. You understand the culture and most importantly, what's required. Kevin Thelwell didn't seem to have any of that. The big one for me was the Shermiti deal. There's been loads said about McCoy spoke about it as well, and obviously you're not anybody involved with Rangers and anything like that, you know. But can you understand if the fans' frustration with that kind of money spent, and it's the biggest transfer, it could go up to 10 million, and he scored one goal?
Well, there's two things, Si. I've got a great knowledge of English and Scottish football.
Yeah.
To this day, I still go and watch games. I'm in lots of contact with lots of managers and coaches. I know all about all the players. So my knowledge was Scotland and England. Kevin's knowledge was England.
Right.
And this is where I could have helped Kevin in relation to coming up to this type of club, knowing what this type of club and fan demand. The fishbowl of Scotland, especially Glasgow. And it was very, very important. But in relation to the transfer targets, in relation to the recruitment and how they went about it, it's very difficult to make a call.
Yeah.
Outside looking inside, then you've got to say that there's been one or two disappointments in what they've done for Rangers. It's difficult for me to comment because I don't know the process of how they ran through that.
Well, for an example, this is me talking as a fan, and I get that the fan and the management is completely different, but a fan should also have an opinion.
Totally.
Sometimes common sense is an easy solution for things. Now, Lawrence Shankland, Rangers supporter, goal scorer, guy that knows the league. You've seen what he's doing with Hearts just now as a free transfer at the start of the season. His agent, I believe, is the same agent as Tavernier, so it's not going to be hard to speak to him. He went on holiday with Tavernier, and Rangers buy a young boy 18 million. Sorry, 8 million they bought him for? I'm saying 18, I had that on there. 8 million, which he might become a good player in the future. But common sense tells me that you take the free transfer of Lawrence Shankland all day long. And if it doesn't work out, the argument as well, it didn't work, but it was a free transfer and he's got a record in Scottish football. That would be the simple approach. But to go for that young boy at that time, I just find it incredibly naive.
I asked you earlier on, the European Cup winners team, how many Scottish players were in that squad?
Yeah.
We go back to modern day football, and I said to you that in dressing rooms, the balance has to be right. Don't care what they say. Of course, there's great foreign players. Of course, there's excellent English players that we could bring up, no doubt about it. But don't ignore the Fergusons and the Shanklins and all these other players. All these guys need is a platform like Rangers, and you just never know what you can develop. And that just doesn't mean the Fergusons and the Shanklins. There's a whole range of people out there that if you give them the jersey to put on and you put them in front of this fan base and you put them onto Ibrox, you never know what you can get. So there's it's all about that balance and opportunity. But we should never disregard the Scottish players or the British players that can make this club a great balanced club in relation to bringing in the very good foreign player.
And the right type. Modern football. We'll get in our 10 minutes, if that's all right with you.
No problem, anytime.
Modern football. What's your take on VAR? And do you have a different opinion on VAR in Scotland than it is in England, where I know there's a lot more money put into it?
Well, let me make it clear to you. VAR is a disaster. It's inconsistent. It spoils the celebrations. It spoils the reactions. They're not getting it right. It's not been a success. It's a failure. They can continue to run with it. But the bottom line is this VAR is just a disaster, in my opinion. We need to go back to allowing referees to be human. We need to go back to letting people celebrate as soon as the ball hits the back of the net.
I agree with that, yeah.
And get that reaction from players, from the staff on the bench, and from the supporters. And all of a sudden now we're waiting minute after minute after minute to find out what the decisions are. And then what we're seeing, quite simply, we're seeing incredible decisions where you sit down and look and you think,
yeah,
how the hell can that not be a goal or a penalty or whatever? So for me, Si, it's just a disaster that needs to be removed. And I understand that we've got to try and evolve and bring in technology. I'm all for goal line technology. I think that's very important.
Yeah.
But as far as the VAR goes, as far as all the nonsense surrounding it and the inconsistency, then the quicker they remove it, the better for supporters, for players, for staff, and for everybody involved.
100% agree with that. Do you think the problem's VAR or the people that are employed to do it? They may be not educated enough on the rules of it.
Well, I think there's some inconsistencies with VAR as well. You know, what they can look at and what they can't look at. I mean, there's bigger decisions that need to be looked at that they don't look at that should be involved in VAR, for example. So right across the board for me, it's just not happening. And there's no doubt that
it's took a lot of fun away from
it has. There's no doubt. It's took a lot of reactional celebration as well. You know, that's standing about waiting to find out, is it a goal, is it no a goal? 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, and then you get the decision, you think, oh, I'm not sure about that decision. So it may be, I don't know the people that are making those decisions. I don't know how those people get hired and what the process is and what the procedures are.
So you wouldn't, that's another question. How did they get hired so you don't know that?
Well, we know there's a process. We know how people get picked, but at the same time too, there's better options out there that would sit in that studio and would know the game, would know all about the game, would know how things happen and how things work. And sometimes I do feel like there's a lot of decisions made because quite simply people just don't know the game. And they don't know what can happen in the game. And they also take into account, we also know the players. We know the players that the ones that the Davy Coopers that couldn't tackle a fish supper. So when he does tackle, we know it's accidental or we know it's not meant, etc. So these things come into play as well, Si, but it's very difficult. My opinion, to the Rangers punters, we need to get rid of it. It's not good enough.
I mean, I can't enjoy a game of football because the other thing as well that maybe you don't struggle with this, but I find that the rules seem to be changing all the time. For example, the offside rule. 1 minute is the finger, the leg. There's a tiny part of his body is offside, and it depends how the camera angles on it. Things like that should be basics. It should be a basic rule. The handball rule. 1 week it's a handball, and this is every team. It's affected Rangers quite a lot, but it's every team. 1 minute it's a natural position, unnatural position. The rules should not be changing so much to accommodate VAR.
Well, that's what I talk about, the inconsistency. And the inconsistency right across the leagues and the teams and the games, it's just nonsense. When you look at the 1 minute, it's that decision for a handball, next minute it's not a handball, it's went against that or whatever it may be. So I just think it's too inconsistent. I think it spoils the game. As you said, all these different rule changes that are coming in. Again, you look at it and you think to yourself, okay, we're splitting hairs here. Really, we understand that there's this great technology that's helping us.
But it's too much.
Well, it can be too much from time to time. Don't get me wrong. As I said, there's an argument for and against it. I'm totally against it. I would rather go back to the referee at being human and
makes a decision.
Having that human error. We understand it's a human error. And that's just how it goes. It goes for you. Sometimes it goes against you. But sitting back and waiting for these minutes, as I said, on VAR is not for me. And the inconsistency is certainly not for me.
Last question, going to ask you. You've got no influence on this whatsoever. The way that football fans are treated in Scotland, maybe all the world, but Scotland, I think it's a disgrace. Rangers have got a game coming up against Annan Athletic on Friday night at 8 o'clock. Tomorrow night they're playing Hibs, 8 o'clock, Monday night. When do you think or how do fans get a better treatment from Scottish football?
So I've got to tell you, back in the good old day, and again, I don't care what anybody tells me, I'm involved in modern football right now. I'm working with a modern player. I'm scouting and watching the modern teams. Football hasn't changed. It's still the same. We've got technologies. We've got different things that's come in and video analysis and recruitment. We understand that. But this game's all about motivating players, developing players, tactically working with players, individual practicing with players.
But it's also about fan enjoyment and entertainment.
Well, that's the whole point. The whole point that I'm going to get to is that back in the good old day, Rangers played at home and the reserves played away and vice versa. Yeah. I remember playing in the reserves and I was playing beside very experienced European Cup winners, cup players who were maybe coming back from injury or suspension. So when the first team was playing at Tynecastle,
you were at Ibrox.
We were at Ibrox.
Remember?
And I was at Ibrox as a young player, playing in the reserves, and I was getting educated by European Cup winners, cup players that were injured, coming back from injury or suspension. There was nothing wrong with that system back then. There was nothing wrong with 3 o'clock kickoffs back then.
Yeah.
It made life easy for the fans. I understand television's come into it. I understand Sky Sports runs the game. You would have to say that they run the game in relation to
money.
Of course, it's money, and it's all about money. But for the supporters and for the genuine football people, then back in those days where the fans could go to Ibrox and watch the reserves playing, but still see first team senior players, it was a good system. And unfortunately now we've now got these 8 o'clock kickoff, 5 o'clock kickoff, and pure and simply, it's sad for the fans. It's all about money. We've got to accept that that's just the change in modern football.
Especially travelling, the Rangers supporter travelling for
100%, absolutely.
The other thing as well, Billy, right? I know you're teetotal, I think you're not a drinker. They're trying to get fans to behave at the football, right? And anything a football fan does is highlighted. Rugby or anything like that doesn't really, as I said, football fans get treated a wee bit differently, I would imagine. But to ask guys to go to a football game, Rangers Kilmarnock on a Saturday night, 8 o'clock, of course they're going to be on the bevy. They're out all day and night. It doesn't do anything for the game to me. All it's going to do is it's advertising Scottish football to an audience. It's nothing else. They're no interested in the actual game. And the paying punter, see the guy that actually goes to the match, they've no interest in him.
Well, listen, they say that I've got a drink problem on social media. I can confirm, Si, that I am teetotal and have been teetotal all my life. So just for the Rangers fans, it has been said in many of the fan forums, etc. But I can assure you, I'm a teetotaler.
That's Iron Brew.
In relation to a wee bit of vodka. In relation to the question you just asked me there, one of the things that I often say to the young players, now I understand that the fans travel, the fans will go and have a drink, etc. I sometimes say to the young players, maybe you should travel in 1 or 2 supporters buses and get a feeling what it's like to be a fan. Mm-hmm. Coming to watch you that's getting paid well to play for this club.
And appreciate it.
But take away the drinking and take away the misbehaving, whatever they may or may not do. But get the players to feel that, what it feels like, Si.
The passion.
The passion of the bus, the songs in the bus, the preparation of going up there and getting behind your club. being together and looking to these players that make your weekend, or don't
completely change their opinion.
Well, maybe that's my point.
Aye.
My point is, it just might change their opinion to give them that feel of what it's like to be with these supporters that pay great money and want you to go out there and die for the jersey.
And you mentioned sorry if I'm going on here, but you mentioned the reserves there. What is it? Why do we not have reserve football anymore? Because I don't get it. Well,
the think tank, it's all to do with the think tank, isn't it? The think tank at the top sit down and try and evolve the game. And
so young players just now are playing against young players. When you were a young player, you were playing against, for example, if it's Hearts players that are just come back from injury, so top class opponents.
It always was that case, as I said to you before. At the minute, you've got all these different age groups and levels. I know they can move them up and move them down, and there's a bit of shuffling going about. But again, I still maintain it was nothing better than me walking out on a Saturday at Ibrox, playing beside Jim Bett, playing beside Alec McDonald.
And it was a good crowd as well.
Great crowds. I mean, I can remember there was one game at Ibrox against Celtic, 20,000 people.
Durant's comeback.
Dean Durant's comeback. So when you think about all of that, and you look at the experience that you got, the education that you got, then it stood us in very good stead. And we should not knock that. But the think tanks decided that we're going to go down a different road. All of a sudden now in England, they're talking about scrapping academies, and academies are now not working. And again, Si, this conversation could go on for days and days and days. But I am a big fan of education on young players from senior players. I am a big fan of senior players playing and helping young players in the reserve games when they're coming back from injury or suspension or just out the team. And it would be quite good in the modern game for us to go back to one or two of the old traditions, because then I think we'd be certainly developing and producing better players and players with stronger mentality, stronger character and stronger discipline.
100% agree with that. And in terms of just on that, players win the lead, do you think they should be educating players a wee bit more? Because like yourself, you've left football and you went the right way, management and things like that. But a lot of players, like example, Paul Gascoigne, went off the rails a wee bit. And the reason for it is they went for the highest point in their life to the lowest because they've got nothing. Do you think there should be more in football management from the clubs to prepare them for life after football?
Well, I'll tell you what I do think. When you look around the game, the amount of players, ex-players, that is out of football with the contribution that they've given, either Scottish football or English football or the national team. My brother-in-law, John Spencer, for example, played with Rangers as well. Been in England in the Premier League, played
went to America.
So went to America, was at a very,
done commercials.
Absolutely fantastic career.
Aye.
He's in a great position to go and pass on great experience. He doesn't get a call for the SFA. He doesn't get a call from anybody to go and help coach, be part of something. And my point is, saying not just to John Spencer, I'm slightly biased there. That lad should never be lost to football. He's played in the English Premier League. He's played with Rangers. He's played with Scotland. He's played in America. He's played all over the place. He's got great experience to pass on. Why is this guy and people like this guy out of football when we look at, no disrespect, some of the people that's in football
who have no football connection,
who've got no football connection, no football background, no football experience, making decisions? So in my opinion, go back to the good old reality and sort out one or two problems. There is too many good people out there who have given their life to football that deserve not to be pushed out of the game, but they deserve to be brought into the game and given the respect that they deserve. And again, Si, that's just my opinion. On John Spencer, I'm very biased. But a whole range of other people, I sit and look at it and I say to myself, why are these guys? The SFA have never asked me at any point to go along and be involved in a national team or a coaching course. Never. A way back, Ross Matthew was probably the only one I can remember a way back when he asked me to join in the 17s when I was a very young coach. But for the last 15, 20 years, I've never been asked to do a coaching course. I've never been asked to go and do it's incredible. So again, the establishment need to look at themselves, I think, and rethink this, because there's too many good people out there that are getting lost to the game that deserve to be part of something somewhere where they're making the team and football and Scottish football better.
Improving it.
Absolutely.
And I would go as far as to say, even at the grassroots level, just getting it for the bottom right to the top, getting it right.
Well, again, you know, all of these guys, and I can name you 100 guys right now that's played with many different teams that I know are excellent people. They're great coaches. They should be involved, Si. They would make players better. They know how to work with players. They've got that personality to bring the best out of people. They've got that experience. Why are they lost to the game? What the hell are we doing to improve this game, all these clubs in the football in Scotland? We have got to bring more of these outsiders inside to help them. And again, Si, no disrespect to the people that's in the clubs. Clubs can make their own choices. People can make their own decisions. But I'm telling you now, there's a big gap there that needs to be sorted.
I mean, your argument works because if Scottish football was in a great position, fair enough. But after the European performances last week and in the last couple of years, it's quite clear that Scottish football isn't thriving. It is good, but it could be a whole lot better. And a lot of that, I think, is because of silly mistakes and silly decisions.
Well, we know ourselves. We've got to the World Cup, but we were very fortunate. And again, that's no disrespect. But I'm sure that any supporter looking at it and looking at the games, honestly, what happened, great job done by the staff and players. Fantastic to get there. Well done, guys. But we were fortunate. And then we got into the European thing, Si. Then we've been disappointing. So there's still a lot of work to be done at many clubs, including the club that I'm currently at. There's a whole load of work to be done in the academy, in the first team, in the recruitment, in the development of players, in the development of the club. We know ourselves that in every club, there's always room for improvement. And I just feel there's a lot of very good guys out there that have got so many things going for them that would make our game better.
And overlooked. So your message would be basically go back to the basics?
Well, not just the basics. You know, we understand that football evolves. We understand there's all these new technologies coming in. And we understand that there's a place for all of these things. But at the same time, too, nothing beats experience as a player. Nothing beats experience as a manager. True. And nothing beats experience as a coach. That's the bottom line.
I agree with that. And I just find it a bit sad that there's a lack of communication from when I'm saying about players when they finish their career and they've got nothing, they've got to start again. When I say nothing, what I mean is they don't have any offers in football. Surely the communication should be better than that. If nothing else, just to check they're all right, to check their mental health's all right. But if they've got a contribution where they could help young guys, young kids, and the women's game's going on as well now, and that's getting bigger, surely Scottish football could expand and get these ex-players involved and use their talent, because they've been well paid in their day, yeah, but use their talent and get them back into the game.
Well, again, this is only an opinion of mine, Si. It's just what I feel. Looking to the outside of the game, and just looking at the people that are available, and sitting down and looking at what they could bring to the game, then I've got no doubt they could improve the game, improve the player, improve teams. So that's just an opinion of mine that I feel that we're missing a trick there. Yeah. Now, all it takes is for us to go and chap on these guys' door and say, would you like to get involved? Under 14s, under 12s, under 16s, under 18s, whatever it may be, come into the club. A striker that scores an abundance of goals. For example, take Shanklin. Once Shanklin ends his career, why should we not be bringing this lad in to be a striker coach at a club and let him help our young strikers on movement, on finishing, etc., etc. So people like that, I feel there's a lot of guys out there like that I feel could contribute great things to many, many clubs, especially when there's a connection in there, and especially when the heart's in there and they want to see that club do well.
The reason I'm asking all this is the fact that I just feel as if Scottish football, in terms of the youth side of it, they've almost kind of not so much gave up, but it's nowhere near as passionate and as hands-on as it used to be. One of the things that I've always thought is when I was growing up in the 80s was all over Glasgow there was signs up for the council saying no ball games here, no ball games here, and the football parts are getting cut down. Willie Henderson told me years ago a great saying, and I really believe it. The best football players in the world come from poverty. They've got nothing but a ball to do, and a lot of these kids now play with computers and that. We have to find a way of finding these best players again and making these young boys play football. We have to have facilities for them. We have to have parks, and I mean good parks. And there's got to be funding there for it, but it just seems to be a lack of awareness or interest in doing it.
Well, again, Si, we would be weeks and weeks here talking about, you know, the changes of what's going on with it and why it's been down a certain road. But As I said to you before, football's not changed. Don't let anybody kid you on. We've got video analysis, we've got technology, we've got rule change and all these other things. But when it comes down to it, there's a group of guys in the dressing room that work Monday to Friday on their fitness condition, their tactical knowledge and their individual practice. These guys need motivated by strong leaders. These guys need motivated and directed by people that have got character and discipline. And these guys need to know you go into a field of play and what it means to play for that club, play for that jersey, and what the expectation is. So from that point of view, as I said to you before, that's where this experience comes in. That's where I think the help comes in. And that's where I think clubs can gain. But no disrespect to anybody, Si. No disrespect to them. They can go, they can continue to go down the road they're going down. And no disrespect to the appointments. I see a lot of better people out there at the minute than what's going on inside clubs. A lot of people that can contribute great things. But again, that's only my opinion.
Before I finish, good luck with your role with Greenock Morton. I
Thank
hope
you.
everything goes well with it, and I hope you stay in football for many years to come.
Well, I will be in football many years to come, Si. There will be a big tale coming out soon about the gap in time and about why that gap in time has been there. Once the fans hear why the gap was there, I'm sure they'll sit back and take a very deep breath. At the minute, I'm now back in, which is great. I'm back on the training ground. I'm back doing video analysis, which I love. I'm back working with players and staff on a day-to-day basis. I'm thoroughly enjoying it. It's my passion. It's my commitment. And I certainly look forward to the next 15, 20 years continuing that route of working with players, working with clubs, and bringing success to both, along with the supporters that deserve it.
And who knows, you might get linked to the Rangers job again.
Well, again and again and again, maybe at some point, the penny might drop. Si, maybe the penny might drop at some point, and we might end up finding ourselves doing something.
Brilliant. Well, good luck and thank you very much for today.
Top man, thanks for your time. Very much appreciated.
I'll just cut in that. Hold on a minute.